then I'll continue.
Continue.
What I will say a little bit to you today is about this Processes4Plant Partnership. This is one of these private-public partnerships between the Commission and industry, in this particular instance, the European process industries. It was A.SPIRE in Horizon 2020, and as we all know, the European Union loves to rebrand things in the next framework programs, so we are now Processes4Planet. It's a little bit confusing sometimes because the umbrella organization still is called SPIRE, but the partnership is now called Processes4Planet, or P4Planet. So what I'll do today is go a little bit through our strategy, what we would like to accomplish by 2027, and perhaps how MultiCycle can gain some benefit from the things that we have on the table with the Commission. So first, a little bit about SPIRE, P4Planet. We're now 10 sectors. In Horizon 2020, we were only 8, so we have 2 new sectors. We have pulp and paper sector, and we have refineries. Where's refineries? Refineries is here. Otherwise, the other 8 sectors that were in SPIRE in Horizon 2020 are still there: minerals, chemicals, etc. We're pan-European. We have approximately 180 members currently, ranging from industries and SMEs through associations to RTOs, public institutions, EITs, a wide range of members that team up to try to make sure that the European Union's goals for 2030 and 2050 are met. So we have this cooperation with both DG Research and Innovation and DG Grow. We have essentially 3 ambitions, although there are 4 here. And these are the sort of standard ambitions you might expect from a private-public partnership with the Commission, and with thinking about what the Green Deal is and the 2030 and 2050 goals for the Commission. So we want to develop and deploy climate neutral technologies. So climate neutrality is a very important aspect of our roadmap and the innovation programs and innovation actions that we have in that roadmap. Circularity, which is of course relevant for MultiCycle, has to do with closing all of the energy and resource loops you can think of, essentially. And because of both of these ambitions require technology development, new technologies, we're talking about large investments, we're talking about doing things differently, which may be more expensive. This whole competitive aspect is incredibly important. We can't sort of push these technologies that we need to have in order to secure our future without making sure that they're competitive. So we have both competitiveness in terms of making sure that the technologies we develop are as effective as possible, but we also have an aspect where we interact with the Commission in order to try to push the projects and the technologies that, say, reach Tier 7 to funding, like MultiCycle, into an actual physical plant that exists somewhere in Europe. So a Tier 9 type of situation. So please keep that in mind a little bit when I go through my talk in terms of how perhaps MultiCycle might benefit from some of these initiatives that we have with the Commission. And if you have technologies that you say, yeah, these are mature technologies at Tier 7, we really see the benefit of putting money in the ground and building a plant, but you lack sort of an idea of how to do it, contact us. We can help. So we have these ambitions, as I've stated. We view these transitions to be achieved through what we call 4 transformation levers. This involves industrial-urban symbiosis, and I'll say a little more about that later. A process innovation, digitalization will be very important, as evidenced here, for example, in MultiCycle, where you have the AI aspect. And then we have these non-technological levers, because we need to develop new jobs, new skills, ensure that the society has accept for what we want to do. These levers are then transformed into 14 innovation areas. These are considered broad pillars on which we build then the 36 innovation programs, under which we have all the topics that we end up having with the commission. And again, all of these things need to fulfill the ambitions that we have stated in our roadmap. So here are the innovation areas. I don't want to go into them in a whole lot of detail. You can see for yourself. What may be important here is that we have tried to estimate the progress of all of these different ambitions from today through 2050. So by 2050, we would like to have the KPIs for all of these ambitions reached, and then it gives you an idea of how we view the technology development taking place between now and 2050. So for example, in digitalization, we want to have a rapid increase in digitalization technologies so that by 2030, they're essentially completely implemented in the process industries. On the other hand, something like CO2 utilization in chemicals and fuels, we don't expect to see anything, say TR09 by 2040. I do a lot of work in CO2 utilization, and I mean the number of TR09 technologies that use CO2, and you could probably count on one hand. So there's a lot of technology development that needs to be done there, but with proper planning and the right projects, we expect to achieve TR09 plants on CO2 utilization by 2050. So this gives you an idea, again, of sort of our thought process and how we design these innovation areas and innovation programs and what is important. And obviously, energy is very, very important. The vast majority of our CO2 emissions today come from the combustion of fossil fuels, as you all know. And so if we want to cut those emissions, we have to go away from the use of fossil fuels. And that means we have to start using electricity. And so that we have a large portfolio of programs that want to electrify the process industries. That means if you have a process that requires lots of heat, how can you get that heat electrically? We have, for example, there's a electrified catalytic reactors is a topic. Use of thermal energy. So all the thermal energy cycles that are present in the process industries need to be recycled. So there's lots of innovation actions and programs involved in this. Perhaps what is more relevant for MultiCycle and this audience here is this whole idea of upcycling and eco-design. The idea being that you want to do as much as you can with as little as you can. And we make a very strong point of emphasizing, of not using the word recycling, because recycling in our mind is a very ill-defined term. We prefer to use the words upcycling and downcycling, with the idea being that an upcycling process is when you take an end-of-life material and then you have a process whereby that material can be upcycled so it can replace the primary resources that are used in the processing industry. A downcycling process is where you take those same waste materials and instead of upcycling them to where they can be as nearly like virgin materials, they're used for perhaps a lower value application. So there are lots of aspects in here, and we view the process industries as central to this whole concept because the process industries makes the stuff that the manufacturing industry then uses to make products for the consumers. And so there's this linear aspect here that needs to be cyclized, so to speak, so that when the process industry makes the most out of the products that they make, they take care of the byproducts, they handle the waste better, but these materials then go to the manufacturing industry, and how the manufacturing industry makes and designs products so that things can go back to the process industry, and how the consumers handle these products and send them back to the manufacturing industry, which then sends them back to the process industry. And so this whole aspect of collectors and sorters and recyclers is very, very important. Again, with the idea of upcycling as much as we can. This is a very important aspect of our roadmap and our interaction with the Commission, and I hope it is a concept that you will see more and more of and willingly be part of in the future. And this is what we call this hubs for circularity concept. And the idea behind this is that you have these territorial systematic solutions for circularity. And that means circularity of everything from water to energy to heat to your materials. And it's not just an urban it's just an industrial symbiosis, which we refer to as the link between industries. For example, if you have a factory A and they have a waste material and they send it to factory B, which is then processed. We view this as an industrial urban symbiosis, so that includes all of the waste materials and all of the effluents from the civil society as well. So for example, if you have an industry park in a region, it's not just what happens within that industry park, but it's also how the waste materials from the society around that industry park are then funneled back there. And so this is the whole concept of hubs for circularity. So we need to develop the business models in order to assure this transition happens. We have to have this innovation that takes place, because there's lots of innovation that needs to be done if you want to take a waste material and upcycle it back to use in the process industry. And as I said, the community really needs to be involved in this. We have to have buy-in from the civil society in order to achieve these goals. We view this as very, very important for achieving all of the 2030 and 2050 climate and sustainability goals that the Commission has brought forward. And we view the process industries as central to the whole idea of these hubs for circularity, because as I said at the beginning, it's a process industry that takes raw materials and transforms them into added value materials that then the manufacturing industry makes into consumer products. So all of this has to be involved with the process industry, otherwise it will not go anywhere. And then you have this thing here where we aim to, and this is going to be a stepwise process, to put it this way. And so we have what we call the symbiosis readiness levels from 1 to 9. You can consider them somewhat like the TRLs, if you like, but it tries to give an idea of how interconnected perhaps a certain region is. And so we view this as a stepwise process, but we need to start now in order to get as many mature hubs in Europe as possible, as soon as possible. And then we will have, we're building something which we refer to as the European Community of Practice, which is aimed to be sort of, you can call it it's more of a technological clearinghouse, because it's called a best practice clearinghouse, because the idea is to have an organization where all of these different hubs are involved, and then they can share amongst themselves the best practices, not only technological best practices, but how you best interact with the civil society, how you best interact with the politicians in your region, how you build the business models, and the whole kit and caboodle, so to speak. And so this is a very important aspect of what we want to do, and so we hope that this will be an organization which will be established and have a life of its own, so to speak. And then I go back to, I mentioned earlier something about going from TRL7 to TRL9 and how important that is, because you can develop great technology, but if you don't have a way to ensure that the investment is in place in order to actually build a facility and have a TRL9 and actually realize these technologies, then you haven't come very far, essentially. If you really want to achieve all these climate and circularity goals, you have to put money in the ground and build stuff. And this is what we refer to as our marbles or first of a kind, where we take technology developments that happen in Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe that come to TRL7, and we find a way to engage the investment opportunities that exist in Europe to realize these TRL9 types of facilities. So This is very important not only for the hubs, but for projects like MultiCycle, where again, if you have technologies and you see, yes, there is really a business model here, there's really a technology that we can realize, but we don't know how to do it. We can help. There are certain tools that we have with the Commission in order to profile our projects, profile companies who want to push some of these necessary technologies from TR07 to TR9, to invite investors and get some funds available in order to actually realize this. So we have identified 50 marbles in this, and we hope to launch 15 of these in 2021 and 2023. And what we refer to as a marble is not necessarily one technology, but perhaps a set of technologies that have been developed to TRL7, so that if you have, say, a process of TRL7 where you can do something with carbon dioxide, you maybe need to couple that with a TRL7 technology where you have very, very good heat integration or electrification of your reactor, and then perhaps you need to have another TRL7 technology whereby that material or the waste products from that process are then recycled back. So I'm not quite sure where the whole idea of calling this a marble came from, but that's neither here nor there. But it's again the idea that you want to have something tangible and solid, which is a collection of technologies that you can say, here you go, we can achieve our climate and circularity goals with this marble. And sort of to summarize here, we have a long way to go. There's a lot that has to be done. I speak a lot to students about climate neutrality, use of carbon dioxide, and the more I talk to these students, the more it's clear to me just how enormous the challenges that we face are. We're talking about enormous amounts of carbon dioxide. We're talking about enormous amounts of energy. We need to start now. The way is long. We need to do things correctly and quickly. So we hope to, in other words, through all of these aspects, through our innovation programs, through these first of a kind plants, through our hubs for circularity, actually achieve these goals that we need to meet. Because I mean, I want my grandchildren to have a safe, secure life here in Europe as much as you do. So I think that's it. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.